Well, thank you, Chairman Wisniewski, Vice Chairwoman Red. It's great to be with Governor Byrne, Governor Florio, Governor Christie. They have Clint Eastwood in an empty chair. They have Clint Eastwood talking about an empty chair. We just had Frank Malone talking about an empty suit. I thought I'm here this morning to say thank you for something very important you've already done, and to thank you in advance for something I know you're going to do in the next 63 days between now and Election Day. You've done a lot to build a strong and forward-looking Democratic Party from one end of our state to the other, and we thank you for that and for journeying to North Carolina. But I saw something last week that reminded me of something even more important than that you've done. I was visiting with some constituents in my district, and a woman who was very concerned asked me if, like her sister across the river in Philadelphia, she was going to have to go get a voter ID to go vote this year because she didn't have a driver's license, and she was born at home, so she didn't have a birth certificate. And she was very worried about the fact that the right to vote that her mothers and fathers had fought for and some had bled for was about to be taken away from her. And I was able to give her a very good answer. Because you worked so hard to retain a Democratic majority in the New Jersey Assembly in 2011, and because you worked so hard to retain a Democratic majority in the New Jersey Senate in 2011, I was able to tell her we don't have a legislature that will do the wrong thing on this. We have a legislature that will stand up for the rights of New Jerseyans to vote. We thank our Speaker and our Senate President and all of our state legislators for taking that position. Because you worked so hard to re-elect that legislature, I was able to tell my constituents that in New Jersey, there is no room for Jim Crow the way there is in Pennsylvania. Now, I'd like to go home and start to teach our neighbors a lesson in facts, a lesson in reality that the other side just doesn't seem to be willing to measure up to. They love to talk about double standards, how their candidates are given one standard by the media and there's bias against them. They love to talk about double standards. But when it comes to President Barack Obama, the Tea Party Republicans are applying a double standard that is dishonest, deceitful, and wrong. When he took office, the month he took office, on that bitterly cold January day when the sun shines so brightly with hope, gale force icy winds were ripping through the homes of Americans across this country. The month President Obama took office, this economy lost 750,000 jobs. In the 30 months since March of 2011, this economy has gained over 3 million private sector jobs. Seems to me, if you had a president who took office when we lost 750,000 jobs and turned it around that for 30 consecutive months we gained 3 million jobs, people would say that president's doing a pretty good job on the economy. But that's not what they say about Barack Obama. In the last administration, President George W. Bush said, job one in U.S. foreign policy was to make sure that we destroyed and crippled the leadership of Al-Qaeda. And it started with Osama bin Laden. On a memorable April evening in 2011, an incredibly courageous group of Navy SEALs and Special Op forces, supported by military and civilian leaders of our country, did an incredibly heroic and successful thing. But someone had to give the order to make that happen. And when they walked into the Oval Office, the intelligence community said, and they don't have a very good track record lately, let's face it. The intelligence community said to President Obama, we think it's highly probable that Osama bin Laden's in that compound in Pakistan. We think it's very likely that he's in there. And we think there's a very good chance this mission could be a success. If they had been wrong, if he had blinked, if he had not had the courage of his convictions to make that decision, he would have had a very different result. But he listened, and he reasoned, and he thought. He didn't yell, "Bring it on." He brought on a careful decision. He made the right decision. And today, Osama bin Laden no longer walks the face of the earth. You would think that they would say that a president who made a courageous decision to lead courageous forces to get public enemy number one was doing a pretty good job, but that's not what they say about Barack Obama. The first president who tried to pass a law to guarantee every American decent and affordable health care was named Roosevelt, Theodore Roosevelt. In 1912, he ran on a platform, and Clint Eastwood remembers this. In 1912, he ran on a platform of providing decent and affordable health care for every American, but he couldn't get it done. President Franklin Roosevelt, who gave us the security and dignity of Social Security, couldn't get it done. President Harry Truman, who won the greatest comeback victory in presidential history, tried to do national health care, but couldn't get it done. President Johnson got a large part of the job done for our elderly and disabled with Medicare, for our low-income families with Medicaid, but he could not get it done. Even the noted socialist radical Richard Nixon proposed that every employer in America would have to provide health care for their employees, but he could not get it done. And as we famously remember, our gifted and talented President Bill Clinton, who did so much for this country, aided by his brilliant spouse, who's now, I think, the best Secretary of State we have ever had, Hillary Clinton. They tried to get guaranteed health care done, and they couldn't get it done. What others could not do in 100 years, Barack Obama did in 1 year. Now, you would think that a president who got done in 1 year what others could not do in 100 they'd be saying he did a pretty good job. But that's not what they say about Barack Obama. What we say about Barack Obama is he is their worst nightmare. He's a guy who started at the bottom, raised by a single mother, worked his way up, borrowed his way through school, excelled at everything he did, and all of their lies and all of their distortions do not work on him, and they will not work on the voters in 63 days. They just will not work. So this is the 100th anniversary of the sinking of the Titanic. I bring this up because I watched the Republican convention last week. And they learned exactly the wrong lesson from the sinking of the Titanic. You see, they think if we had only rescued all the people in the first-class cabins, everything would have just been fine. If we had just had enough lifeboats for the people in the smoking jackets and the tuxedos, it all would have worked out just fine. We know better. We know that the voyage is not a success unless everybody makes it to the other side.